GTii very close to realizing its formation bearish target. I have a couple levels that we need to review for today's session before Friday's trading session. What is up, you guys? This is ARCa coming at you with a GTii technical, statistical, and raw price action thread of analysis. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video with a friend so that you and them could consider joining our trading community in Discord called ARCa. With that said, let's go ahead and dive right into the charts. Okay, so we are looking at GTii in the 4-hour chart here, and we did notice from the prior analysis video that we had that we were on a right-angled or descending triangle. Usually this type of triangle in the rules for the playbook has a bearish and a bullish price objective. Now, the bearish price objective, as you can see, based on price action, we actually did make a trend line here, which is the price objective. The price objective, excuse me, can actually be obtained by taking a trend line from the hypotenuse of the triangle to the lowest point of the triangle and applying it to the point of breakout, which was right about here. Actually, it would be this this candle here. So, and it's a perfectly horizontal line, so we can actually just apply it anywhere, right? So the price objective led us to right at the 1.618, $2.11, which is clearly an area of interest for trading. Okay, so now we have made about 90% that move. We still have a little room to go down, and to be very honest with you, when we're approaching a psychological ratio like this one, I guess its potency will more than likely be realized. And this is definitely in raw price action. I am definitely looking at a continuation onto the downside here. I don't see us recovering just yet. And now in the following chart, we actually did see what could potentially have served as type of a fake out for the bulls. And that was acquired by actually presenting a falling wedge. Now, usually falling wedges do have a bullish price objective. And in this case, since we had a higher term time frame triangle, it actually took over the lower term time frame. Since this is a 1-hour chart and the prior chart was a 4-hour chart, it took control and it actually ended up selling off. Now, in this case, we did reach the 2.618 bearish level, and this is now serving as a form of resistance, which can be in very much in accordance to what we're talking about here. We're seeing a bit of resistance just above with the 2.618 before continuing on to the downside. There is also the very good potential that we can actually wick down at our prior time frame 4.618 that we used for actually both the run up from this triangle from the very lows of GTii that we actually used as a form of support before continuation to the upside. As you can see, we actually retraced right back to the penny of that 4.618, in which we are getting very close to once again. The inverse fib here is actually suggesting a 1.618 of $2.11. I see that as very likely. Possible wick down to here, which is something that Wyckoff theory calls as a terminal shakeout. We can spring down to here at the 4.618 before a continuation onto the upside. But my main target for now is the 1.618 at 211. Now let's go ahead and move on to the statistical side, because it may appear as though the statistics have been invalidated, but there is still a potential that it is in play. Now, new listeners, new viewers, you are looking at volatility here represented by this indicator BBWP. Volatility is direction neutral. We pair it with an indicator similar to this one here, a momentum-based indicator, in order for us to be able to gauge a bias in direction. Now, or for direction, sorry. So we did notice that we were actually starting to make a pivot towards the upside, in which we actually failed when realizing the bearish nature of this right-angled triangle or descending triangle. So what does that mean for the stats? The stats were actually the criteria for us to be able to get the statistical measures from an entire backtest since the beginning of GTii trading. The criteria was for us to be able to take note of every iteration where volatility went into a critical zone, which I consider to be anything above this 90% trend line here. So every time we went up to that 90% or beyond, I took note of that iteration, note of the upside thrust of the iteration, the duration of the iteration, and the amount of times that the volatility versus momentum profile guessed the upside correctly versus incorrectly. Now, the data came back with some very interesting results. So you're looking at a total of 11 iterations in which 7 out of those iterations were guessed correctly to the upside, giving us an averaged upside accuracy of 68.63% with an averaged upside thrust of over 3,200% over the span of just over a month. This is proof of work. I also ran a back test on just the momentum indicator to see just how accurate it has been in guessing the direction for the GTii asset. And out of the 11 iterations, we actually got 10 correctly guessed to the upside, giving us just one incorrect guess. This gives us a momentum upside accuracy of 90%. Not perfect, but very, very good to consider. Okay, so now the stochastic momentum indicator and the 3-day chart, we're looking at more of a macro perspective here. So you're looking at a continuation suggestion to the downside from the stochastic indicator. Now, we did mention that we wanted both the volatility component, which is the spectrum line of the BBWP, and the moving average both pivoted to the downside, alongside the stochastic momentum pitched to the upside as well. Now, the momentum is still suggesting downside, and we are also in a contraction phase right now for the BBWP indicator. There is a potential to where this continues to the downside and, thus realizing the 1.618 lower level down here. And this can actually potentially correct and start an expansion phase from a little bit of a lower level up to this upside here, thus making the stochastic momentum signal and moving average pitch to the upside and resetting our statistical play. So please know that these are statistics. They are not certainties. We just gather these numbers because I trade like this. This is a systematic way of trading. It's a set of rules that I make, and I put signals up, and if the signal fires, then we have a potential of something. But we do have a 3-day period here and a month out suggestion. We're probably about 11 or 12 days into the iteration. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move on to the next chart and gauge a bias for a direction in the immediate short-term time frame. So this can be a validation of what we're talking about regarding the technical and statistical targets and actually the raw price action targets that we just evaluated. So let's go ahead and look at these just now. Now, for the new viewers, I did make a diagram here for you to be able to see the zones of my RSI. So now these are 1, 2, 3, 4 zones right over here. You can see them 1, 2, 3, 4. I just blew it up for your convenience. Okay, so we're looking at first the immediate short-term time frame. This is a 30-minute RSI suggesting a continuation to the downside. It has just entered the oversold percentile, and we are below the moving average, which is represented by this pink line right over here. This is bearish, and it is suggesting almost an immediate downside. So now let's look at the bi-hourly. The bi-hourly is critically oversold. It is currently at 17.37% and suggesting a nosedive of a downside still. Okay, so this is very much in accordance to what we're talking about within our chart here for a continuation onto the downside to the 1.618, potentially a wick down to the 4.618 from the previous time frame. And this, let's see. Let's go back into that RSI. Okay, so now the bi-hourly, yes, is suggesting that. Let's move up to the 6-hour and see what we have right here. Oh, actually, there's one thing that I want to touch on regarding the bi-hourly. This is very interesting. So let's go ahead and make a trend line here and just, zoom out a bit. And you can see that this could have been the lowest iteration we've had historically throughout the entire trading history of GTii. So this iteration here, which was on October 17th, 2022, reached down to 18.49%. Now, zooming out and Now, going back historically, we can see that this red trend line has never been tested. So in the bi-hourly RSI, we have now made historical lows for the RSI, which is very reminiscent to looking at a historical upside thrust, right? So it could be potentially loading something nice here. So now the 6-hour RSI is also in critically oversold as well, 21.51%, and suggesting a continuation to the downside as well as the moving average. Now the daily time frame is also suggesting a downside continuation. It is very much in the grips of the bear strength percentile here, and it's right smack in the middle of it. I would definitely give this a lot of weight. Let's see the micro time frame. So a 15-minute RSI is suggesting a continuation onto the downside. So for GTii, I am not looking at, for the next trading session, which would be Friday, and a short one at that. I am not looking at upside for GTii unless a psychological component gets applied to it to where retail actually just buys like crazy and then FOMOs to the upside. That would be the only reason why I would suggest any upside. But technicals and statistic metrics are suggesting a continuation onto the downside. I would definitely eyeball this $2.11 level, which we're talking about right here at the 1.618, and also the 4.618 at 192. That is my range for support, and it could be a pretty good supply zone as well. Demand zone as well before us continuing to the upside. Okay, so this is a pretty good place for me to leave off the video. If you have any questions or concerns, I'll make sure to leave the links in the description below for you to consider visiting me on Twitter or joining the ARCa trading community on Discord. Okay, you guys, but that's it for tonight, and I'll catch you at the bell on Friday. Adios.